In retrospect, I probably would have done things a little differently. Honestly, my takeaway when all of this was going on is that someone has information on our opponent. You know, things are going a million miles an hour. You know what it's like to be on a campaign. I'd been reading about scandals that people were probably underreporting for a long time, so maybe it was something that had to do with one of those things.
Do you tell your father anything about this?
No. It was such a nothing. There was nothing to tell. I mean, I wouldn't have even remembered it until you start scouring through the stuff. It was literally just a wasted 20 minutes, which was a shame.
Let's take this to former presidential candidate and former Governor Mike Huckabee joins me now. Good to see you, Governor.
Thanks, Liz. Great to be with you.
First off, what do you think of the Trump Jr. email story? There's lots of talk about, this meeting showing intent to conspire with Russia, that he should have told the FBI, that he gave different reasons for the meeting. What's your take?
Here's a guy who's never been involved in a campaign before. He's involved with his father's campaign, and somebody says, I may have some information that would help you. Opposition research on Hillary. Of course, he takes the meeting. But I think the bigger issue is that when the meeting got started, it was so exciting that Jared Kushner got up in 5 minutes and left. Paul Manafort was looking at his phone the whole time. And after 20 minutes, Donald Jr. said, this is really a waste of my time. I think that's how America feels. America right now wishes that it could get up and walk out, get on its phone, or maybe just end the meeting rather than having to listen to the mainstream press and the Democrats, but then I repeat myself, go over and over the same scenario and continually try to find some blood when there isn't any.
You know, Governor, FBI Director nominee, he's Chris Wray. He vowed at his confirmation hearing today that he would be independent, that he would not be pulling punches. He also effectively said that Donald Trump Jr. should have gone to the FBI. Do you think Chris Wray will be able to separate himself from this Russia firestorm?
Well, I hope so. If he can't do that, he shouldn't be confirmed. The Russia firestorm is not a firestorm because there's actual fire. It's a firestorm because the Democrats have nothing else. I mean, they can't point to saying jobs are going down the toilet because they're getting better. They can't say the stock market is collapsing because it's on fire. They can't say that ISIS is getting stronger because it's actually on the run. What have they got? Liz, this is all they can do, is to try to pretend that somehow Russia, and I've heard commentators, even on our sister network, say, Russia meddled with the election. There's no doubt. But what impact did they have on the election? Did they attempt it? Yes, I have no doubt about that. But what I do want someone to tell me and tell the world, exactly how did Russian interference affect the outcome? Did Hillary lose because of Russians or because she was just an absolutely lousy candidate with no message?
All right, let's get back to tonight's theme, what the media is missing as it's hyper-focused on Russia. And we all agree that Russia should not be meddling and affecting the election. The governor agrees with that. There's chaos and disarray in states across the U.S. We have a California sanctuary state law that a sheriff from California says is all about sticking it to Trump. We have a law the critic says acts like a magnet for illegal immigrants, felons in states like California. Also Nevada in an uproar because distributors ran out of marijuana. And Seattle hiked income taxes on small businesses and the upper brackets, but there's more. A town called Belle Plaine in Minnesota is letting a monument to Satan be built in a park for war veterans. And we have State Representative in Maine, Scott Hammond. He threatened the president on his Facebook page saying, quote, Trump is a half-term president at most, especially if I ever get within 10 feet of that blank. He called him a nasty name. Governor, media coverage of Don Jr.'s emails overshadowing what's happening in the country, right?
Absolutely. Now, the lawmaker in Maine needs to have a visit from the Secret Service. That is a direct threat, and it should be taken seriously. But I'm going to surprise you with my view of these other issues in Nevada, California, and Washington State. Here's the simple answer. They ought to get what they want. Let them do it. That's what federalism is all about, letting the states do what they wish to do, and let's see how it works out for them. And let's find out if the policies that they're wanting to implement, strong left-wing policies, add to that Minnesota, if that melts their butter, then put it on the fire and melt away. Let's just see how that works out for them. And if the other 46 states say, boy, they're doing great because of those policies, then they can all duplicate them. I'd much rather see that than I had to continue to watch Washington thinks that it can fix something 50 states at a time, which it cannot and has not.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, what about the coverage of it? What do you think the media's coverage of it has been?
It's been non-existent. They're not covering it. These are real news stories. It affects lots of people, millions of people in 4 critical states. But all we can hear, it's kind of like I feel like I'm watching the Brady Bunch, but instead of Marsha, 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 it's Russia, Russia, Russia. And that's all I've got. And it's getting tiresome. But here's the interesting thing. Even among Democrats polled, they're sick of it. I mean, it's just wearing thin. And the only people for whom this is still on fire are the people who breathe each other's air out of paper bags in Washington and New York and perhaps in Hollywood. Other than that, the rest of the country has moved on and is really interested in jobs and pension plans and infrastructure and things that affect them every day.
You know, Governor, a California sheriff is pushing back against California's sanctuary state law. Let's take a listen.
This is a totally political issue, and it does not take into account the public safety of California. This bill would prohibit me as a sheriff from notifying ICE of someone who's in custody for potentially felony, driving under the influence, domestic violence, human trafficking, rape of an unconscious person.
Is the sheriff right?
Absolutely. That sheriff ought to go and run for sheriff in some of the other states other than California, where a lot of people in the legislature there have lost their crazy minds. My gosh, to say that we're going to protect felons and keep them from being arrested, you and I don't get protected against felonies that we would commit. Why would an illegal get protected? This is beyond insane. I mean, it's irrational. And I just can't imagine why anybody would defend this sanctuary state proposal and think somehow that's going to work out real well. It won't.